Hey guys, hope you're doing well. Today I'm working on the Scout. Little update since the last time I made a video. I did a full tune-up earlier this week on this thing. Didn't record it. It's just your basic, spark plugs, wires, cap, rotor. It already had a new coil on it from when I was tinkering on it before. I don't know if I recorded it, but it's got a I had a Autolite 2100 carburetor in the shed that I rebuilt and put on this engine, and it seems to be running pretty decent. Don't know if that's going to be a long-term solution. I just wanted to get this thing running. It's set up for a 4-barrel, but the Edelbrock that was on it had a few issues I might be able to fix. I don't know. But today I'm working on the brakes. And I've got all my parts here: new rotors, calipers, hoses, shoes, wheel cylinders, and pads. And I'm kind of learning today because I've never messed with these locking hub situations. As you can see, that rotor's pretty gross. Maybe could have been resurfaced, but the new ones weren't expensive. The drums on these trucks are expensive, so we are going to reuse the drums. But all this is kind of new to me. I just got the hub apart, and there's 6 bolts holding that on, and then this is kind of loose, this housing right here. Okay, so it looks like there's a snap ring right here I got to remove. Okay, so I had to take a snap ring that sits right here on the axle, and then it took a little bit of encouraging, but I was able to get this half of the locking hub out, or I guess the wheel bearing assembly, locking hub assembly, whatever you call it. I guess the main wheel bearing's in here, and that's just a locking hub bearing. I don't know. I'm still learning as I go through this, but I got a little Allen key, backed out these little screws, and now this spins. I believe this will expose the spindle nut, or maybe this is the spindle nut. There's a little washer thing that those Allen screws screw into. I'm gonna see if eventually I can get this rotor off. All right, here's the main nut, and I just loosened this with a hammer and the flat point. You can tell I'm not the first person to do that. But that wasn't seized on there, so we're just gonna take this off. I think, yeah, your main wheel bearing's in this assembly. This is your hub bearing, and there's a bunch of little needles in there that I'm trying not to disturb. So this is starting to look a little more familiar to me now. Okay, so once I got that nut off, there was a washer and then the outer wheel bearing, and the rotor just pulled off. But we have to separate this piece with the innards all there from the rotor, and then we can replace the rotor. So that's what I'm working on now. I believe I have to drive out these studs, so I've got a little lug nut on there, and I'm really trying not to hit this with my hammer, this gasket surface here. So I've got a little thing that I use for things like this. I'm gonna hit it with a hammer. So as I was working on this thing, this little sledgehammer actually came off the handle, so I had to fix my tools while I'm fixing something else. That seems about right. So I got these studs out, and this piece just lifted up. Set it down on here. Now I got to flip all this over so I can drive in the studs from the back. Probably have some wood rigged up so that I have the space I need to drive them. But it's coming along. I decided to take this apart and hit this with a wire wheel. This mating surface seems kind of important to be clean, so looks better. I was having a hard time getting these two pieces to become flush with each other. best method I found, I tried just supporting it with blocks of wood and hammering them in from the back. But what seemed to work best is lubricate everything with oil, put the lug nuts on backwards, and just kind of go around in a, you know, in a pattern, star pattern, just kind of snug everything up, and you know, until everything is seated properly. I didn't realize I had that on cockamamie until I put it on the spindle and the rotor was hitting the backing plate. So live and learn. Okay, I just spent a lot of time determining that my locking hubs need to be replaced. There's a thin metal retainer screw, I guess you call it, that was not doing anything. First of all, when I took it out, it was the big spring with the gear on it just popped right out. That retaining screw is supposed to hold it in there. Looked at it, it looked all bent out of shape and everything, so I tried playing with it, kind of trying to bend it back, and I couldn't get it to do what I want it to do. So we're probably just going to put new hubs on there. In order to get this okay for now, I just gutted this, so I have no front, you know, or no four-wheel drive, just rear, and this up here is just free floating. So that's we're gonna want to fix that though, I think, before we put this on the road, but this will get by for now. Alrighty, I got a caliper, brake pads on here, put the little wedge in here with the bolt. It's nice of them to give me a new bolt. Just gotta connect my hose now. Alrighty, got the line hooked up. Had to kind of clock that bolt. That one right there, to make sure that the hole in it lined up with the line. I think that's what you're supposed to do on those. But we got new rotor, caliper, pads, line, pre-greased hub, wheel bearing. So I'm gonna put a tire back on this one and continue the rest of the job. Yep, got her on there. Okay guys, it's been like a month since the last piece of footage on the brakes on the Scout here. I bought some new locking hubs. These are the worn 90 something is the part number. Here it is, 9062. And so what I've done here, I'll show you when I do the other side, is I've reused the spindle nut and all that, which was kind of specific to the original automatic locking hubs. But the internet says it's okay to do that, and I saw no issues with it when I was assembling this side. So it was pretty much self-explanatory how to install this. The kit did not come with these bolts here, and the ones that came on the automatic hubs were way too long. These are the originals here. And the kit, the locking hubs did come with washers, so one flat washer and one lock washer that you use on each bolt. I went and bought, I'll show you what I bought for these. I just went down to Lowe's, so 3/8 by 16 thread, 1.5 inches long. Y'all tell me if that's not long enough, but I do feel like it's got good thread contact in there. So that's about how far it's going down in there. So I think that's good. I'm gonna move over to the other side because this side should be good to go with, you know, new brakes and locking hubs. So I'll get to it. I forgot to say, probably the trickiest part was getting the lock ring on the axle. While, you know, when you slide the main body of the locking hub on there, you have to secure it with a lock ring or a snap ring, whatever you call it. And what I had to do was actually stick a screwdriver in there in the center of the axle. There's a little hole in it, and I kind of pried up and then pulled, just, you know, enough to give me some grip. And then I pulled that axle out, and it slid out a little bit, and that was enough to expose the little groove that the snap ring goes into. Took me a little while to figure that out because I had a bunch of grease gobbed in there, and was trying to figure out why my lock ring wasn't doing right. And then while I'm pulling out, I had my other hand with a flathead screwdriver just kind of pushing that snap ring in, and then it clicked into place, and that's what you want. So that was kind of the trickiest part about it, that and the trip belows to get the bolts. So on to the other side. All right, this brake line up here was giving me a hard time, and solution I found is cut this hose, put an impact on that, and hold this. I couldn't really get my line wrench on there because of that insulation springy thing they put on that brake line, and it backed right on out. That's after I'd already tried heating it up with like oil, heating it up and spraying it with oil, penetrating oil and stuff like that. So that worked. This little wedge over here for the caliper is really holding me up though. Hopefully I can get that broke loose. All right, after messing with this wedge for a while and using a sledgehammer and a little punch and working it slowly off, and, you know, hitting my hand a few times with a sledgehammer, we got it. So on the other side, I think I disconnected the hose from the caliper, but that's not necessary. I'm replacing the caliper, so I'm thinking this side will go quicker because I already kind of know what I'm doing based on the other side. All right, I had to put the wheel back on and get some weight, or keep this thing from spinning, so I could break these bolts loose. Can't remember if I had to do that on the other side, but I just broke them loose with a little breaker bar and 9/16 socket. So let me take this wheel back off. Okay, so I just got this locking hub cover off, and this is a problem I was having with these. There's a little thing that screws onto those threads, if y'all can see them, and it tightens down on this part when it's disengaged. Well, it's no longer being retained on this what do you call it, this set of threads, column, whatever. As you can see, it actually stuck to the other part, so it's supposed to still be on here basically. And on the other side, when I tried to fix it, it was all bent out of shape and not good. So we got some new ones, but that's what was happening. This is that snap ring I was talking about, right up in there, and I stuck my screwdriver up in here and pushed down and pulled out to kind of give me that clearance I needed earlier when I was installing the new hub. But I'm still in disassembly mode right now. Alright, so when I took this part of the hub off, and keep in mind these are the automatic locking hubs, all of this guts fell out, even though I got that snap ring out first. This was just barely held in there enough to pull all the guts out. And it's these big roller bearings, needle bearings, whatever you call them, in a cage. And if you were going to reuse that, you would just put new tacky grease in that cage and hold all your little bearings in place and put it back together, I suppose. But luckily we don't have to do that. And obviously the only reason I'm taking like everything apart on here is because I want to replace the rotor, and also I want to repack my wheel bearings. If you were just doing a pad change, obviously you wouldn't have to do all this, or if you were just replacing your hubs, you wouldn't have to do all this. So alrighty, I'm gonna get into my wheel bearings next. If my Allen keys are organized correctly, then this is a 5/64 Allen bit to get this little screws in this nut to back out a little bit. Alright, so this is the order of the, actually I think there's still a washer in there, but in the order of things you take off is this It's actually upside down right now, but that nut with the little Allen heads in it, a little locking tab washer, I guess you call it, and then just a regular nut, axle nut. And I believe there's still a washer on there, and then your wheel bearing. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this off and replace the rotor on it. Come back over here. I already showed that to you once, so I think I'm gonna just do it off camera. Alright, so I got my new locking hub partially on there, and then I put that little lock ring in place, and now I'm putting my bolts in, and then hopefully I can put that caliper, pads, and hose in real quick before it gets too dark on me. But the sun is going down. I have to get a flashlight. Okay, so I was messing around with the banjo bolt, the new one that came with the caliper, and it's too long. It's hitting the casting inside of the caliper before it tightens up on this part of the brake hose. So I compared it to the original, and the original's shorter, but I used the new banjo bolt on the driver's side, and I didn't have a problem. So I think they just gave me the wrong banjo bolt with this caliper, but the other caliper came with the correct banjo bolt. That's what I'm going with, but I'm just going to reuse this old banjo bolt. It's not in bad shape. So, and of course I got my crush washers. It's coming together, guys. Look at all the new parts. I like it. All right, I got her back together. That banjo bolt worked, so everything tightened up and appears to be good to go. Now we just got to do the rear brakes, but that'll be a different video. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. Hey, look, there's a little froggy over here. That's a toad right there. Oh. All right, thanks for watching, guys. Have a blessed one.